If it's necessary, it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, folks, I'm back on, and if I go down again, Karen, I hate to tell you this, but I think me and William will cancel this. We'll go to and record the show and then put it out later because I don't want to keep getting cut off. So, dang. All right, let's try this again. So we know that China and Iran were there with Afghanistan celebrating. Um, they got Afghanistan, the Taliban, um, a terrorist group that we just walked away from. And William, how many people did we leave there? Do you know? Because I don't think it says on the article.
It does say, but it does say, I saw a thing that there's like 30,000 people that have been trained on our weapons.
Yeah, and then it says, that the Taliban were proud to portray in their parade and say it that this is what we left them. Uh, it says we left 600,000 U.S. weapons, 75,000 different types of military weapons were left, as well as U.S. vehicles were left. They seized control, and of course, they are boasting that the Biden Harris administration bowed down to them. So, um, then they restricted women from having a life. They took it away from them with Islamic laws. And we have sent them $3 billion uh, to help them with the takeover of Afghanistan. They said over 20,000 Americans who were injured. They said we were able to get portion of them out, according to what um, the Taliban are saying. Um, so, uh, William, this isn't the first time because we have. Let me see if I can get William's head in here. Uh,
I got a big head, watch out.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, we got William in there. And I'm not poofing out, so that's good. Um, First, I want to say that in the United States, the amount of military equipment that we left in Vietnam, this was in 1973. Um, this is per the Paris Peace Accords. The U.S. withdrew its last troops, leaving behind an estimated $5 billion worth of military equipment, including everything from F-5 fighter jets to Huey helicopters, M48 tanks, the M113 armored personnel carriers that were captured by the Vietnamese army. Now, there's also they collected basically 2.2 billion. Um, Now, if we put it for today, it would be about 9 billion in money. But William, you mentioned the Viet
So we did what
Vietnamization.
was called Vietnamization,
Yeah,
and that was where we were transferring all the power and control to the Vietnamese army that we trained, South Vietnamese army that we trained, and we continued to give them weapons to be able to prosecute the war to keep them free. So for us to have an honorable withdrawal, if you will, we made sure that they had the capacity to prosecute war, and it didn't work out that way, but that was the planned idea. Now in Afghanistan, uh, they had, I think they planned the same thing, but the Afghani national fighters for the national government collapsed even before we could leave. So it was a different deal.
yeah. So the Vietnamese did seize a lot of equipment, and then we left some for the what? Um,
Keep in mind a lot of that equipment because the South Vietnamese were did not want to be communists. If they couldn't keep the equipment, they blew up a lot of it so that the North Vietnamese didn't get to use them. So there's a little difference there.
yeah,
It's slight. It's slight, but that's still a difference.
and this was another long war that we spent many many years in. And then when we look at Iraq, I mean, that was pretty much the second place that it was mentioned in the news that everybody cared about, that we left all kinds of weapons and the same type airplanes. We left tanks. But now what I did find out, a lot of what we left was stuff that was destroyed, or not destroyed, but um, um, there was something wrong with it. And realized people, when they found out how much it would cost to ship weapons back and forth, it just it wasn't worth taxpayer money to bring all that stuff back broken. So they left a lot of it that was broken in Iraq. So that I did find out, William. Is a lot of people get upset over that.
We could have burned all that equipment out on our way out.
But that doesn't mean they didn't fix it. See, that's the whole point. They did fix.
Right. That's why we should burn out all the holes and stuff before we left. Just fuel bombed our own equipment.
And so we left it in the hands of terrorists, our enemies, because that's what took over Iraq after the fact. And then, if we move on to what we just talked about with Afghanistan, once again, it was too expensive to bring anything back. But I think we could have done a little better on bringing a lot of it back, William. I think, the guns, even the dogs, because I think they left a portion of dogs there too.
In Vietnam, we had ports where we could ship stuff easily. We had roll-on, roll-offs, and so we could have shipped it back inexpensively, just like we took it there. But we had to go through a land route and go up over the Khyber Pass and through Pakistan to ship it out because Afghanistan's a landlocked nation. So there's that.
We do this for power shifts also, William, where like in Vietnam, we left it for the South Koreans. Am I right? Vietnamese?
South Vietnamese, yeah.
Yeah. And to where they could use it to be able to keep North Vietnamese off of, out of the country.
Yeah, the North Vietnamese communists from coming down from the demilitarized zone. Yeah.
But so now moving on from like the 70s until now, the weapons that are over there and the selling of them. The other thing is them selling them, because we know Ukraine does it. Ukraine, whatever we give them and some of the other stuff we send them, they do sell off. And not only that, but you got, I guess, pirates that steal this equipment also and sell it. Because we had it to where we were unloading equipment and just any truck was pulling up and they were loading them up and they were driving off. And that was, I remember doing, Karen, do you remember that? I did a report on that.
And the Chinese were also getting hold of the equipment to disassemble it and see, how good our equipment was and how to thwart, our capacities. So all that's been going on.
Yeah. And I want to move on to the skirmishes in China, because is there a war really active with China? And the Chinese Coast Guard attacking Filipino boats in their own territorial waters right now. Or how about the clash among the India China border, and we've talked about that. They've even went down to even fist fights when they ran out of bullets. The truth is China is already invading all of its neighbors. It's basically occupying territory that belongs to other countries. The Chinese Communist Party is building villages all along China's border. And according to satellite images, at least 12 of them are areas claimed by other countries. The CCP makes sure they also are populated with Chinese, as well as the local or the country's population. No matter how inhospitable the land around them is, they try to, it's more of a spy. Um, they're more like spies in these countries. Jinping, he calls these people border guardians. Um, See, I hadn't heard that one, William. Uh, what they do is,
Well, the United States has special forces, and they do recon and quietly move in and out. The difference between our special forces and the Chinese is Chinese are saying that we're there, and that they're there, number one, and number two, that they have a special name for them.
yeah. Well, this is the first I've heard of border guardians. Um,
Right.
and so when they get into these areas where they take over, they have promises of cheap rent or no rent if they work for certain companies. Now, I've seen that in Papua New Guinea where they moved in there, and they would say they would pay their rent and then a little bit of labor, and they ended up being slaves. They just ended up taking over them, and oh, sorry, we're not going to pay your rent, but we'll give you low income, and then we never signed a contract type thing. Um,
And they strip fisheries so that when they do go, there's nothing left for anybody to even eat.
Now, and China basically they legitimized that its claim over other countries and territories when they do this. And many are along disputed border with India. I think that's where India is having a problem because they inched over the line, said, "Okay, we got it," and they inch a little bit further. Or
Well, they
like we talked about the other day, where they are building
Bangladesh,
islands.
Bangladesh and their ports. See, now they have a place that they can put into a port because they build it, so they have at least some use of it. So what do as soon as they see an unprotected island?
Yeah, and one is like Bhutan and Nepal. Um, is some that they're inching towards. And the thing that gets me is once they get in there, um, they start like close to the Indian border. They're looking at things that go up, and then all of a sudden they resemble military barracks, communication tower, observation, operational support facilities, helipads, and military heavy trucks. Um,
And they dig in fortifications.
yeah, and even the New York Times and a few others identified this as military assets, such as trucks and tents. And there appears to be a shooting range, um, and even military range for practice. Now they're saying, "Oh no, no, we're just kind of setting up." See, that's what happened in Australia, because Australia caught them doing that, and they said, "Oh no, no, you're not going to do that." So has at least one village near the Himalayan pass at the border of India. And India's one that's good to describe how they do this because they inch over, and then India, of course, has to fight them. And it's not a whole big, massive war. It's not huge amount of troops. It's just enough to keep China back. And it's like two steps forward, one step back. And um, they massive amount of troops. into Bhutan, and they started building roads. But William, I really believe that this was in 2017, and I really believe that's what triggered the big skirmish on that border, because they said they kept building and they were getting the roads too close to the border. So, um,
Well, yeah,
the
because
same things are
India,
happening in Tajikistan and Vietnam, um, Australia. They're even doing it here. Canada has let in quite a few Chinese. They're starting to build up cities just Chinese up there. Um, so as you can see, China is spreading out amongst the world, and they're getting more and more in different places. Now, um, William mentioned a theory to me. I just want to throw this in real quick, William, is about you said moving boats out of away from China.
so the Teddy Roosevelt just rolled in off from Oman and Yemen, but they came out of the Pacific. They came through the Straits of Malacca to get there. So now I don't know if they were filled back in by another aircraft carrier, but if we're moving our equipment and our carrier strike forces out of the Pacific and into the Indian Ocean, into near Arabia, doesn't that leave China better access to the Indo-Pacific? So I'm just a little concerned that maybe we're stretched too thin.
Mm-hmm.
But we have major and minor carriers, so there may be some fill in there.
Yeah,
I'm just a little concerned about it.
And when you start looking at it, war looks certain. When they start sending nuclear sub and a carrier group, strike group, that got new orders, and we talked where Lloyd Austin spoke to Gallant, and it was to take a step to defend Israel and military force and all the capabilities that go with it throughout the Middle East. So the USS Abraham Strike Group
orchestrated by Japan or by China in the background.
Okay, let's see. Additionally, the Secretary has ordered the USS Georgia guided missile to the Central Command region. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is being pulled from the Pacific region. So they're pulling, like you said, they're pulling these fleets from the Pacific and moving them over towards Iran and
they're moving
Israel.
them through the Pacific as long as there's something left in the Pacific. If they follow in from behind. But my concern is that we only got so many carriers, and carriers have to go in to dock every once in a while and be maintained, just out of normal wear and tear. So there's always a couple carriers being updated, major wear items taken care of that the crew can't take care of, things like propellers that need to be replaced, and major machine overhaul that can't necessarily be easily done by the crew at sea. So we've only got 7 of those big carriers, or is it 11? Maybe it's 11 of the big carriers, but we have 20 or so subs. Submarines aren't a problem. The problem is just our carrier strike groups.
Yeah. Now and the air assets that go with it, they said, is the F-35C squadron, the Super Hornets, electronic warfare aircraft, and other vital support and attack planes. U.S. Georgia, though not outwardly impressive, they said, as carrier and escorts, is nevertheless a powerful asset in any coming fight. Now, the nuclear power submarine that was operating in the Mediterranean as of last week, they were conducting training, but now they're moving over, reveals powerful capabilities. The U.S. Navy Sixth Fleet revealed the sub was taking part in events with Special Operation Forces, um, soon, uh, soon to become an aggressive force. The
Well,
per-
if you look at the USS Georgia, it's got an extra hump right behind the sail. All right. Well, that extra hump isn't for the USS Georgia. That's for special forces.
I see. You know what got me when I read this, William, was they said, it's not really an exercise.
Oh
It's
no.
almost like what Israel is saying. Israel said, we've been flying and we're doing this exercise and that, but now we're ready and we're going to be put in place to go to war. And that's what this article was explaining, is the nuclear subs and the fleets that are going over there are now put in place and ready for the offensive, defensive, whatever they need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. The United States is there as a defensive posture. Now, whether or not Israel goes from a defensive to an offensive posture is a different thing, but it doesn't mean we'll go to an offensive posture. It just means we'll ensure that the Israeli people as a whole will survive.
And not only that, but then we did. Um, oh goodness,
We may attack the
we
Houthis.
we
We
approved
may
20
attack
billion in
Lebanon.
weapons to Israel now, which I'm glad of, because they've been waiting and waiting, and they're just giving little bits, and then they give this big lump sum over to Ukraine. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do that. Give it to Israel.
So,
You know.
so
But
Israel,
we have a split Senate and Congress on who they really want to support. A lot of them are on the side of the Palestinians and Gaza, and don't want the U.S. doing nothing. They want them to attack Israel. And then we've got the other side that wants Israel to be able to defend itself. So it's
the
going to be.
globalists want to be able to continue their push into Russia. That's their big deal. But they're not interested in supporting Israel. The ones that want to support Israel are the Jewish and the Christian factions within Congress, and so there is a major split there.
And they said, in addition, Congress and the State Department had approved the sale of 50 F-15 fighter jets. They also did 33,000 tank cartridges, up to 50,000 explosive mortar cartridges, new military cargo vehicles. So they're sending a lot over to them, not just
the ammunition
money.
is already in the region.
Right, and
we have ammo dumps actually in Israel, but they can't access those unless they get authorization from the United States. Now, as far as moving aircraft and machinery there, that's a different deal. They may have to actually transit that across the Atlantic to get it to Israel.
And now realize, even when we send money to Ukraine, most of the time the money comes back to the states, because we build a lot of we do the ammunition, and we build a lot of the vehicles that they're buying. So it does. Sometimes we send them millions of dollars and we get millions back because of the equipment that is made here, not anywhere else.
Israel tends to purchase the equipment from us. We don't just hand it over to them.
Right.
Or in Ukraine, it's more of a poverty deal, so we can't really recoup those monies. But Israel has been a prosperous little nation, and they've purchased a lot of equipment from us. So it's just a matter of getting those in Congress that are resistive to relinquish that equipment to the Israelis, because they're concerned that they won't have enough then to give to the Ukrainians.
And
And the stuff that Israel buys is brand new. It's newly manufactured. So it's not like we're giving them from our stocks. They're just getting it as it's being produced.
right. Well, see, the same way with Ukraine too, because a lot of people were upset that maybe Ukraine was, buying it from Iran or other countries, and then when Congress looked into it, I can't remember which congressman or senator was looking into it. They found out that no, it was actually that they were spending the money and they were spending it at the United States, not any other country or a terrorist country like Iran. That's good to know, though.
Yeah, well, that's for military equipment, but things like food and fuel and stuff like that, they've had to lean on the Europeans. They've paid with U.S. dollars.
And the thing with the food aid or health aid, we need to remember that when we send them aid like that, first of all, it goes to the soldiers. It don't go to the people. It goes to soldiers first, and then it goes to the people. And if there's nothing left, there's nothing left. And we found that many wars with Iraq. We found that out with Ukraine. We found that because the soldiers weren't getting fed in Ukraine, and we were sending them all that aid package. And come to find out, it wasn't really going to them, the soldiers. It was going to a different route. We also found an aid happening like that in disaster. Hurricanes and earthquakes too. I don't know if anybody knows that. It used to piss me off, but
that's happened in Puerto Rico and
yep, it sure did. Syria, because a Syrian girl, they were saying that they were getting money from family outside of Syria because the Syrian army and ISIS and a few of the terrorists were getting all their food, and then they would get like fruit, like apples, oranges, and potatoes, or sometimes rice, which she said was a glory to see. But for the most part, they weren't getting anything. No diapers, no formula. Heck, even what was it, Puerto Rico that got hit, and we sent all that stuff down there.
Puerto Rico in the past has had hurricanes come through, and we've sent large aid packages, and then a year later we find out it's in a warehouse.
And it went bad. All that I remember because I was mad about the formula, because all that we had a formula shortage at one point back then, and we sent them a bunch, and then they started manufacturing and got a bunch up again. But the fact that it went bad, all that formula went bad, had to be tossed. But see, that happens a lot of time when they don't tell the trucks where to go to these warehouses, and a lot of times
part of the problem is
or
a lot of these places we send it to are either tropical or near subtropical, and the stuff simply doesn't last in the heat like it does here in the northern United States.
Yeah. Now, just when we think Yemen's going to calm down a little bit, William, they decided to. I think they just poke around. The first thing they can poke at. But this time, the Houthis took over the UN office and they keep staff hostage in Yemen. And we've been talking about this. Let's see, when is this from? Yeah, it was
That's one
from
of those
today.
situations where they bite the hand that feeds them.
And always hostage. And they're stealing critical documents, and they're not sure what documents they're really seeking or wanting, but that's what they're doing. And so the Houthis, they said that, we know they're Iran backed, and they're known as, oh boy, let's see if I can get this right, Ansarallah. They've
Yeah.
brutalized human rights workers within their reach. So June, it got really bad, and they launched an abduction spree where they raided the homes of UN and non-government organizations and took the workers and their families hostage, severely disrupting humanitarian efforts. So almost like what they did here a while back in Yemen when we had what was it, the 13 hours or something like that, where they were stuck at the UN.
Oh, that was Somalia.
Was that Somalia? No, was it Somalia? Okay, what was it in Yemen?
Oh, you're thinking about Benghazi.
Benghazi. There you go. Okay, so now they're going to the homes. They're not attacking the UN offices per se, but they did now. But for the longest time, they've been going to the homes of the UN workers and either killing or maiming the UN workers and their families for I'm not real sure. It didn't never said if they were going after critical documents or if they were just doing it just to do it.
So the documents they go after typically aren't like secret documents like you would think of with the United States military. Okay, what they're looking for are documents of passage. Who in the area has like a UN passport? They're looking for traitors.
And
that they consider traitors.
So the Ansar Allah de facto authorities sent a delegation to the premises of the UN Human Rights in Sana'a, they say, and it forced national staff to hand over belongings, including documents, precious furniture, their vehicles. In addition, office keys, not only that office, but government offices and money. And so they're wanting a little bit of everything. So they want money, they want cars, they want nice furniture, and the documents. But it's still, when I looked up to see, I even went to Alex Jones to see if Alex Jones was talking about it, to see what's the documents they're looking for.
So the Ansala wants the documents, and how do you pay for people to go and extract those documents? You just tell them you can take whatever you want, just bring us the documents. That's how they're paid.
And then not only that, but they're saying even Houthis have joined up with Hamas organization, which, yeah, I could see that, and have when they are getting close to getting hit, or they're the Yemenian authorities or military go to take over, they flee.
Yeah.
And then they said that what they're doing is they're going up to help Hamas invade Israel because they can't really be, they're flooding into Israel to where they're not really being vetted as Yemen. And so what they're doing is they're helping Hamas in Israel with a terror spree, going door-to-door raids in residential neighborhoods and killing an estimated so far 1,200 people. This is gang rape, torture, infanticide, and other atrocities. And this has happened dozens and dozens of times in Israel. Over 100 whom are still believed to be Hamas in custody in stronghold in Gaza. So, William, we knew Houthi was going up to help them. We know that um, Hezbollah
Well,
and Hamas are
they
going
couldn't
up to
come by
Syria.
ocean. They couldn't come by ocean, so they were coming through Egypt. Okay, they were going through the tunnels into Gaza. Luckily, we've taken care of those tunnels now, but they've been able to stop that way into Gaza. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out in the end, because during the fog of war, there's so many crazy reports in every direction that make no sense.
Yeah. I tell you what, I've had to go through report after report and say, is that, what is really true? What is pertinent, for us to tell everybody? Because it's getting so much that everybody's writing about it and everybody is adding their own to it, folks. And I don't know how many times I've clicked on something and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a great video, or this is going to give me a lot of info. And it's like, you didn't even talk about the name of your title of your show. What happened to that? So anyway, the thing is, William, one of the people I talked to up and around Syria, they're saying, even Iraq, they're moving from Iraq into Syria and then and around. And it is, even though they have the check stops, they said it's so hard to catch these guys.
Part of Iraq has naturally has Iraqis, or I'm sorry, Iranians there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in Iran, they have Iraqis there. Okay, so it's not just, they're not bifurcated. These are communities that go back and forth, and so they can move Iranian people, or the insurgents can move right out of Iraq because they live there, right? And just cross the river into the Euphrates and go right into Syria. And at other times, when Iran's having problems, some Iraqis will just, because they live there, get involved with what's going on in Iran. So we have to look at these border areas as a mix of people from both regions.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but even Iran mentioned, I think about a year ago, that they wanted to go in and take over Iraq to help the people out.
Yeah. Well, there's some Iranians that are living in Turkey. There's some Turkish people living in Iran on the other side of the mountain there.
Yeah. What do you call them?
There's not absolute demarcations. It's just general control.
And with Iraq so unstable, though, with the lack of being able to find a really good leader, I can almost see Iran that being their next target, or even like a small target like Russia. Russia's got this Ukraine war going on, and they got other things going on. In the meantime, we want to take a look at Alaska.
Well, that's why the United States has maintained air bases inside of Iraq, is because we don't want them going to war with anybody as the main force. But as far as these terrorist organizations, we really don't have any control over them. Not in that region.
Mm-mm. No, and I don't even think any of the leaders. I don't even think Iran has any control over all of the different ones, because when you looked at when it was the Taliban, and Taliban started getting older and ISIS formed out of the younger, they didn't care what Taliban said. They didn't care what Iran said. They didn't care. They were their own terrorist little group that grew and grew and grew. And the same way with the Houthi. And I don't think they care what the actual leader says. They just care about what's inside their little groups.
Yeah, it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
There you go. And then we give them the weapons to hurt us.
They look at it not from a regional basis, but from a tribal basis.
Yeah. And then, of course, they keep ending up with
gather together, and then suddenly they become ISIS.
Yeah. Well, it was, when I was looking into, because ISIS going into Mexico, it was when I was looking at that. And it was one of the younger guys from, and I wish I knew his name because we did kill him off. He was one of the first leaders of ISIS. And he was basically, mocking and, doing to the Taliban, and said, he could do it better and they could be stronger, and they wanted to join up, but they said no. But you look at what's in Afghanistan for the leaders, and they are older leaders, they are older people. So ISIS was right. But you can't do ISIS and then say, well, now we got ISIL, and we got, no, ISIL is ISIS, and that's what I'm hearing. Everything out of the Middle East, and even Syria, the resources I have there, they all say ISIL was just a throw off to get everybody to think there was two groups. It was actually all based under ISIS.
Right. Well, they have the ISIS of the Levant. That's where ISIL came from. And then they have
all the same. Yeah.
The fighters of the Arab and Syria as being ISIS. They have to come up with different ways to describe different areas of the groups, because they're moving regionally everywhere. And so if they're now down near Levant, they become ISIL. If they're up towards Iraq, they're ISIS.
Oh, what was that general's name? Flynn? I'm thinking Flynn, General Flynn. He was part of that one group that was following one of the head leaders of ISIS, I believe, for the longest time. Do you remember him talking about that?
Well, we've killed a number of leaders then.
Well, it was one thing he was saying that I think is when they were accusing him of doing stuff for Trump. And he was saying no, because he was in the Middle East with this group, and they were, what do you call it, undercover. It was a secret mission.
Yeah, they're trying to interdict.
And he had to admit to it in front of, I think, Congress, because they forced him to. They weren't supposed to be there in that region. They weren't supposed to be they weren't supposed to be doing what they were doing. But he had to admit to it in open hearing, saying that, yes, they were there and they were going after this leader. So, and boy, we got way off track.
They had a big thing at the White House when one of their dogs had caught the leader down at the end of this tunnel, and the leader with his wife just blew himself up, and the guy went away, right? So the dog was hailed as a hero. So we knew that people were in the region because we were killing the leaders, but we didn't know to what extent, whether it was just they're going after the leaders, or they were doing interdiction on roads to thin out the amount of vehicles they had, or make it so they could illegally move oil. All kinds of different things are going on simultaneously. So, yeah.
So, and I guess lastly here, as we were mentioning, it feels like we're pulling out of away from China, and that North Korea, though, is saying that Japan with the United States is pushing for a nuclear attack. I think they just want to fire something, William. But they said that the military threats from the United States have forced the North Koreans into bolstering up its nuclear war and putting a deterrence. They say
Well,
that
the United States got spread way too thin in that region. If you're one of these nutty leaders, right, you think, well, they're going to toss a nuke at me. Well, the United States doesn't want to, get a conflagration going. But if you're a paranoid, nutty leader, you think that's going to happen. And so that's what you say the United States is going to do, because that's what you would do. And that's not the case.
And the accusations is the three allies held a summit in Camp David last year, and it ramped up to their military partnership, including holding a first trilateral multi-domain military exercise this last June. And they said this is proof that North Korea needs to look to China to be able to have backup, even a partnership with them and Russia. But we knew that. I mean, I've told the viewers this back in February, March. This was what was going on, and they are criticizing that the Secretary of State Blinken and Austin, Jake Sullivan, said that they declared North Korea's nuclear threat as top security challenge in the Indo-Pacific region. And they said that with what they're saying, that North Korea now feels a bigger threat. That they
So in the past, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, all did all of their own security along with the United States. And so that was the case. But now they've decided to become interdependent, meaning that it's South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, all working in concert. And this is new. Of course, you knew that China and North Korea had been involved anyway for a long time. They just went ahead and voiced it as being official to make it look to be a deterrent. When in fact, it had already existed for a long time. That's one of the reasons we created that alliance, AUSA, with Australia.
Yeah. So North Korea and Kim Jong-un announced that Pyongyang would deploy 250 new nuclear-capable missile launchers to the front positions along the border with the South. They said since June, they have also sent thousands of balloons carrying scrap paper, manure, discarded dirty clothes into the South in a revival of Cold War era psychological warfare. And there will be more. So can you imagine?
Yeah, keep in mind, China
Manure
is
and dirty clothes. I wonder whose dirty clothes they are. I guess that's how.
Manure. Probably sending dead chickens as well.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it. I'm wondering what the scrap paper is.
They will do it. I mean,
and what this reminded me of is when we seen that balloon come over the United States.
Well, that's a different deal. That was could be guided. That was actually for reconnaissance.
But that could be considered psychological warfare.
But what happens is South Korea sends balloons into North Korea with DVD players and DVD tapes, which is just an anathema to North Korea. So North Korea loads up manure and stuff like that because they consider that manure cultural manure coming into their country, and so they send it south. And so it's a back and forth. Whatever the winds are blowing, they're constantly picking.
But if the winds blow the other way, they're just dumping. Never mind. No, but to me, William, what I did with the psychological warfare, that was when they sent China sent those balloons over here. Look at how it freaked everybody out. Even the news media were all upset over it. It was like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? What are they getting? What are they looking at? And when it stopped in Montana over a lot of silos. Is that what they were?
Well, it
A
was
military
a guy
base.
in Montana was actually able to see it at high altitude because Montana is big sky country. That's what they call it,
Mm-hmm.
and he could actually see it. There was no clouds in the way. The atmosphere is clean. He could see it. But if he hadn't seen that and reported it, there wouldn't have been any psychological point of it because nobody would ever have known it happened.
Well, they seen it in Hawaii though too, but everybody was so watching it, and then as it went across and got all the way over to DC, and the media was still, what are they doing? What are they looking at? What are they? Are they taking air samples? It was a psychological warfare to me, is what it was.
They use it for everything,
Because
but
what
it
if
was
the
actually
next one? What if the next one carries explosives or manure? The next one that goes over, if it's under Harris Biden administration, it's going to be the same thing. We're just going to let it float on by. But I don't think if Trump got in office or another Republican, let's say 8 years down the road, and we have a Republican in office, Republicans are more we want to protect our boundaries. We want to protect our country. We don't want to give China the chance to drop something in the middle of our country.
Take that balloon down. If it was Trump, they tried to snatch that balloon and get hold of the technology before it was destroyed.
So, yeah, they should have. Yeah. Maybe they did, William. I don't know. Maybe they got a hold of, and they're just telling us, oh, it blew up and we didn't, it sunk to the bottom.
Well, you always try to exploit the enemy's technology.
That's it.
The United States is every superpower is constantly trying to exploit the other guy's technology.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, William, that is it for tonight. We get to put our feet up, and Friday is trivia, folks. So invite everybody, tell your friends and family about it. William gets to take a break. I'm going to work him over on Monday, though.
Yeah, we have an incursion by Ukraine up into Russia, and they're taking some Russian military prisoners and stuff like that. We'll be talking about that Monday.
And lastly, before we go, because you mentioned Graham in Ukraine, I forgot. It's also in X's and hearts and stuff. Graham in Ukraine right now.
Right. You want to talk about it right now?
Yeah, because I almost forgot it.
So we're worried about Iran striking back at Israel, and that's one of the reasons the United States has come in to the region in a big way. Well, the leader's talking about tactical retreat, meaning that sometimes it's better to pull back and let things blow over before you reassert yourself militarily. And if you continue to push forward and cause too much military chaos, it can overwhelm you as a nation, right? And then what he said, that then you're in God's judgment because you didn't listen to the Quran and get involved in a tactical retreat. So we don't know exactly what's going on. We think the leader right now is pushing back at the Revolutionary Guard, saying, cut your crap for a little bit, we'll reassert ourselves down the line. Or it can be going the other way. It's hard to really understand them. That's going on at the same time. Now, in Ukraine, north of Kyiv, several battalions, we found out, have gone up into Russia trying to get towards Kursk. And they want to get all the way to the Kursk nuclear reactor. Well, they haven't got that far, but they've got a bunch of villages kind of under control, and they've taken some Russian prisoners that didn't expect an incursion to come in there. At the same time, Putin has brought his cabinet together, and they're bringing their air force to bear on that area and rushing troops into the area. So it's just another part of the Ukraine war. Now the question is, did they go north because of what happened at the peace conference that they just had in Europe, or did Russia allow itself to be invaded, okay, by making their troops in that area very thin to aid the Chinese? We don't know. We don't know how this all shakes out. But at the present, Ukrainians have made their way in basically through half of a large county. And they do have, at first we didn't think that they had a logistics train behind them. Turns out that the Ukrainians do have a logistics train behind them. But they're sending their best fighters into the area, and if they have their best fighters going into Russia, north of Kiev, how are they protecting themselves in the Donbass, Luhansk areas that Russia's already came into in Ukraine? And that's all subject to military disinformation. We just don't know what's going on. We don't even know if they're being successful with the Russians.
I'm trying to see if I can get my sources over there. I haven't touched bases with her, but I'm not sure if she's in Ukraine or if she's in Russia right now, to find out what's the truth of the matter.
Well, as time goes on, we'll get a better picture of it, because they can't hide everything over time, and so that's why I say Monday we'll probably get into that.
Yeah, because it seems like over the weekend, all of that builds up. Israel starts up, and Hezbollah, they get going, and then we see Yemen get going over the weekend, and we always see Russia and Ukraine get going. And the only one to me, when something's real quiet, you got to worry about it. And the only thing quiet right now is China and North Korea with Taiwan. That's what worries me. So I've been keeping a real close look.
Quiet too, so yeah.
Anyway, William, that is it for tonight. And boy, you get a break for a few days. I don't know. I might bring you in on Friday for a little bit of news, and then do another show and have trivia. We'll just have to wait and see. So
we'll study and see what happens.
We'll see what happens. But yes, I'm excited about trivia this Friday, folks. And I'll leave a message on what time it will be on, so everybody knows. And with that, please share the program with friends and family, and hit the like button, love button. I call it the love bug button. And subscribe. Hit that bell so you know when we're on. And with that, we will see you on Friday. God bless and take care. And thank you, William.
You're welcome.